Hey, my name is Alex Rome, and today I'm going to show you the 3 essential plugins that I use when I'm mixing vocals every single time. And these 3 plugins, you can use just these 3 plugins and have your vocal track stand alone. Now, this doesn't mean that's the only 3 plugins that I always use, but it's the 3 essential ones. I always have these on every single audio track that I mix. And before I get to the project file where I take it through and show you how I use those plugins and what plugins they are, I do want to mention that my girlfriend Lauren and I just came together and put together this nice sample pack with 100 vocal chops in it. Now these vocal chops can be used for any genre to make any kind of vocal chop melody. They're amazing. Like now they're all I use. We are going to have a competition with the vocal chops, but I don't have that video ready yet. That video will be coming out a little later, but they are available on my website, electronsound.com. I don't have a demo yet, but go check them out if you trust me. Or you can just wait for the demo and get them when you get the demo. Okay, so here is the project file that I am going to take you through, and I am also going to be adding my plugins here, the 3 essential plugins here. So I'm going to play this really quick, and then and what I'm basically showing you right now is what the end result will sound like.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car. And 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar. And I can't stop. No, I can't stop.
So, yes, there is a harmonic layer here.
I know it breaks your heart.
And there is a dominant layer here.
I know it breaks your heart.
But that's not the point I'm going to show. Well, the point of this video is to show you what plugins I got to make this sound like.
I know it breaks your heart.
To make this sound like that, basically. So, this is what it sounds like completely dry.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car. And
It sounds horrible. It sounds like it was recorded on a cell phone when you go from this to this. It sounds really bad. So the first 3 plugins that I immediately add is the EQ first. So that's essential plugin number 1. Essential plugin number 2 is a compressor. I'm going to use the Fab Filter Compressor because I can show you exactly what I'm doing in terms of the waveforms. So this counts as 1, these 2 things. I just added that because most of you probably only have this one. And then the third one is working the reverb correctly, or nicely. Shouldn't say correctly, because everything is correct when it comes to music. Whatever sounds good, you know. So anyway, so what am I'm going to do this first. I'm going to EQ first. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do. So I'm going to play this.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke.
So you see this down here?
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city.
We need to work that, and you see how this is kind of its peak here. This is its spike. We got to work that too, and then we got to crisp it up. And I'll show you how hard I typically have to crisp these vocals for people and clients alike to be happy. When I say clients, I do get people who need me to engineer their vocals, and they're not happy until I push this EQ as hard as I'm going to show you how I push it. So let's do this here. I cut typically up to this area on vocals.
I know it breaks your heart.
It leaves just enough so that it doesn't sound like a cell phone like this.
I know it breaks your heart.
That kind of sounds like somebody's talking to you on a cell phone. And I've low cut it up to the 200 range, and it sounded like they were singing through a cell phone. So what I do is I kind of be safe, leave as much of their mid-low end voice as possible.
I know it breaks your heart.
So next thing, let's kind of take care of this peak here. I'm not going to kill that. I'm just going to do it a little bit. this is all according to your taste, your ears. Me, when there's too much of this area, I don't like it. So I'm just going to handle that with that right now. Next is my favorite part.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car, and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop. No, I can't stop.
So right here, you just bring out the crispiness and the nice sounding sound of her voice. You just really push those. And so yeah, this EQ does work on male vocals too. You may have to adjust these a little bit differently because male vocals, sometimes you end up with that cell phone effect that I don't like. But yeah, that's a nice EQ. That's what I like to leave for those vocals. Now,
I know it breaks your heart.
whoops, let's analyze it.
I know it breaks your heart.
So you see a noticeable spike every time she has an S. Well, that's where a de-esser would come in handy to get rid of that. However, it's not what I consider to be essential, so I'm going to leave that out for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to compress. You could either use your Logic Pro compressor, but I'm going to use my Fab Filter Pro compressor, and I'm going to show you exactly how I like to compress vocals with this. So I'm going to zero these things out here and get this at a nice place that I like to start out with it. So a short release and a short attack. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this through and then I'm going to explain what you're seeing.
I know it breaks your heart.
So let's look at these spikes here. See this big spike? That's automatically something I'm focused on with my compression.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke.
See these nice spikes here? We have to take all of them off.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car, and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I.
So her voice, the RMS, I should say, like it's sort of like the RMS, the average volume of her voice kind of levitates from the -30 to like around this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress it to as close to,
I know it breaks your heart.
I'm going to compress it to as close to this sized peak as I could without it sounding over compressed. Now, when I say over compressed, I mean you don't want to like compress it so much that you get those like awkward breaths in there, and sometimes you get their lips doing the harder syllables like p or s or k. You know, you get like all those things and it sounds like a fucking Nerf gun is like shooting in the background of your acapella just because you compress it too much. I hear that all the time, so that's what I try to avoid. So I'm just going to work this threshold. If you watch this dotted line here, I'm just going to run that to about where you see those lower peaks kind of begin.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car, and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop.
So some words are going to be completely over compressed, but some words aren't going to be touched, which is my toughest challenge typically, but I'm just going to try to work with that as best as I could. This knee, I don't know where to put this knee yet, so I'll just kind of mess with that later. Ratio, as for a ratio that works, it's all according to what you like. It's what you like to hear. I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube where they say, yeah, you gotta put the ratio here, or you gotta put the ratio here. It's wherever you like it, really. There's no place that this knob has to be, so do what you like. Really do what you think sounds the best. And me, I'm going to do what sounds best and what looks the best.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar and I can't stop. No, I can't stop.
So they're pretty steady vocals. You don't really have to do much to them. I'll lower this just a little bit. Some vocals are all over the place if you have a guy that's like screaming or something when he sings, and then in some verses he's like talking, and that's going to be like, they're going to be the toughest. The most dynamic ones, the vocals are the toughest ones, because the loudest vocals are going to be overcompressed, and the quietest vocals in that acapella are going to be undercompressed. So what you're trying to do with this compressor is just trying to steady everything out, instead of having like a totally all over the place volume that's, you know, really all over the place. You're just trying to even everything out with this. It's not really a crazy concept to grasp.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car and 4 years no calls.
So I'm just kind of touching some of her words, and it's definitely annihilating those spikes. So that's where I could leave it for now. If I want to compress it more later, I will do that. But this is a good compression to have, especially if you're going to compress your master, and that compressor will always help out vocals, and that's what I hear, especially if you have a good compressor. The compressor on the master will help out the compression of the vocals in terms of the mix too. So next thing I'm going to work is the reverb.
I know it breaks your heart.
Okay, so this is the default sound, but we got a couple things to do here. We need to spread this reverb out, because this is a plate reverb. That's what it's called. It's called a plate reverb. It's not a I forget where I saw one of those popular DAWs like FL Studio or something. You have a choice between plate or hall reverb. This is by default sounds like plate reverb. So what you want to do to kind of make it like as real as possible is just get this crossover and turn it all the way to the right. And that's one of those little things that, those little tricks I found in Logic that I've never really known about until this year. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull this down, and then I'm going to play it real quick.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car and 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar and I can't stop.
So that is a nice reverb you could have. I would say if you're going to concentrate on something in your reverb, especially for the dominant layer, now, I'm not talking about a secondary layer, because secondary layer is different. I do jack up the reverb on secondary vocal layers, but on the dominant one, you definitely want that reverb layer that is really minimal, but it's still kind of there. So I have a short amount of wet, a small amount of wetness, have this all the way up, and then the length, I kind of levitate around 2 seconds. I could go up to 3, or I could stay down just under 2.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car and...
So reverb does carry a little bit of that 500 mess, so I do like to pull that down a little bit. Not too much.
I know it breaks your heart.
Because you do want, I like to get reverb in the high end versus the low end. So that is it. That is the 3 plugins that I like using on vocals. The 3 essential plugins I always have on vocals. Now, in my next video, I will do the essential layering with vocals, the layers that I always put with my vocals. Now, that'll be these other 2 things that sound like this.
I know it breaks your heart. I know it breaks your heart.
and that, and then the other plugins that I also use with that. So I am going to make a video that is probably coming out next, so stay tuned for that, and then you will learn exactly how I like to mix my vocals. So mix and edit, that is. So again, let's listen to this through one more time, and that'll be the end of the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you soon.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car. 4 years, no calls.